All right, welcome everyone. Really glad today to be joined by Ansel Jeffries, my coworker AJ here at Castlepoint, as well as Mike Pereira and Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney. Colonel Dan Rooney is with Folds of Honor, and Mike is with Battlefields to Ballfields. Mike is the former VP of officiating in the National Football League and the current VP of officiating in the USFL. You may notice his face too from Fox Sports. He's their rules analyst, and ultimately he is the founder of Battlefields to Ballfields. So thanks, Mike, for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
Also with us, as I said, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney is a husband, a father of 5, an F-16 pilot. Do I have that right, Dan? Great. He's also an author of PGA Pro and the founder of Folds of Honor. So thanks for being with us, Dan.
Yeah, blessed to be with everybody.
Absolutely. So Mike, we're going to start off with you, and would love for you to just share a little bit about, we always talk to our clients, especially this time of year, about purpose. And we'd love to hear about your purpose and share a little bit about Battlefields to Ballfields, if you will.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I mean, I've struggled with the purpose, quite frankly. I've been blessed to have some incredible opportunities that have come my way, and they've all been football related, quite frankly, at least on a professional level. And I officiated for, it seems like 1,000 years. I was 2 years on the field in the NFL, and then went into the administrative side and became the head of officiating. And I did that for 12 years. And then I moved to the dark side, which we call the media side. But I learned to appreciate the media side a little bit. But still, I think you reach a point in your life where you just wonder what you've accomplished. What have you made better? What have you done to make this world a better place? And for me, I struggled with that a little bit. And I have this personal tradition, so to speak, is that I drive from Sacramento to Oregon, Bend, Oregon, every summer by myself, and I turn off all noise, no radio, no nothing, and I just try to listen to what's going on in my head. And as I was headed up north, I was thinking about some homeless veterans that I had met in Southern California, and I was thinking about the plight of so many veterans. And then, my norm kicked in. I was thinking about the shortage of officials and what we could do to possibly address that. And I just had this moment where I thought, what do I look for in an official? I mean, what do I look for when I look at a Mike Weatherford, for example? In college, I look for courage. I look for communication. I look for competence. I look for teamwork. And then all of a sudden, it kind of clicked to me when I think about veterans. They obviously have that. And so I was driving and thought, can I marry the two together and get veterans to become officials and offer them scholarships in the way of paying for everything that it takes to become an official, which can be costly depending on what sport it is. So my goal was to pay for everything so that the first paycheck they got goes right in their pocket and they're not paying off their credit card and stuff. And so I'm driving, I'm getting kind of jazzed. And then I make my first stop, which is in the lovely town of Weed, California. And I go to the same Chevron station to load up my gas. And then I'm loading my gas and I'm thinking, what would I call this? If I put this thing together, what would I call it? And it just came to me, Battlefields to Ballfields. So from the battlefield to the ball field. And so from that, I took it to some friends, and I broke the damn speed limit because I was so excited driving from Weed to Bend, Oregon. But when I talked to my friends and ultimately talked to Fox, everybody thought it was a pretty cool idea. So I did all the background that was needed to get the 501c3, to get the web page, do all that stuff. And I didn't know the day that we took the password off of the web page. I didn't know what to expect, quite frankly. I didn't know what kind of reaction that we could get. And it kind of got actually what I expected. I think in the first 3 or 4 days, we got 2 applications, and my sister and I were doing everything by hand. It was like so we made a little file, we'd write it down in longhand, this person from Kansas and all of this stuff. And so we started getting a few more, and then a couple articles were written, including one from Nebraska in Omaha, Nebraska, who wrote an article, who had learned about what we were doing. It upticked a few that we were getting. And then the Military Times picked up the article and actually posted the article. And then is when I found out the need that was out there, because we were flooded with applications, absolutely flooded with applications. So the need to provide something, as we were thinking about it, something to provide those that were a member of a team, to provide them with another team. This being a team of officials who could go back to being role models, in this case to kids, who could go back into their communities and provide a service that that was needed, because there was such a shortage of officials. And it's been unbelievable. I mean, we have now, since we started in 2017, we have issued over 800 scholarships in 38 different states. The stories that have come out of it, I mean, there is no way in the world that something like this could cure PTSD, but some of the stories of some of the struggling people that have gotten out and gotten to be a part of something again, it has made a huge difference in their lives. ESPN on Outside the Lines, you know, did a wonderful piece, which I think was sent out to a lot of the people on the webinar. So I'm so proud, and I'm so energized, because once that ESPN article and video, and then they're posted their podcast that they did, again, the numbers exploded. So we have a new board president, chairman that is actually, we're dealing with financials, the financial aspect. We're at 800. We want to be at 1,500. Wow. And I'm constantly, like yesterday, had a meeting, and we had an official in Oklahoma that lives in Oklahoma, a guy named Gene Carroll. He retired and as an official, and he wants to take this program in Oklahoma and expand it in Oklahoma, because we haven't had so far a lot of applications from Oklahoma. But I'm proud, but I'm energized. Obviously, we have to, if we're going to increase this, we have to increase our funding. Basically our main funding fundraising event has been the golf tournament that we somehow got in between storms earlier the first week of November, but we are now going to pursue to raise more money so we can give these opportunities to more veterans. And we've even expanded to actives, and because we feel like if an active is getting close to transitioning out, if he can have a couple years of officiating under his belt wherever he goes, he can use that experience to keep officiating. And then the last thing, I guess, is that we went from the initial year of support, now we support every one of our people for 3 years. So we cover all the costs, which includes the uniform and NASO membership, National Association of Sports Officials, which provides them a multitude of training materials. So we get the uniform, and then all the expense. Then the second year we pay for their dues and their NASO membership. Third year we do the same. And what we're finding is interesting, and I'll leave you with this. We find some that have never been officiated before that maybe start football because I'm a football guy. Maybe that's why they do it. And then all of a sudden they really enjoy it and say, I want to do baseball. And so we fully scholarship the same person that we scholarshiped for football for another sport. We have some now that we have scholarship for 3 sports, 3 different sports. And we kind of find that if we can get them more involved, the better off we are. And the thing is, we are in such dire straits when it comes to officials. There's such a shortage around the country that, I mean, high school football games are being played on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, because there aren't enough officials to cover them all Friday. And the thing is, the retention rate of officials now, the retention rate is down to 20%. I mean, people start to officiate and then they can't handle the unsportsmanlike behavior that they're getting from not the coaches, not the players, not the school administrators, the parents.
Yep.
And so they bail out. But the interesting thing from our standpoint, Battlefields to Ballfields, is our retention rate is 70%. And I think it speaks to those that we are bringing into our program. I mean, when they make a commitment, they make a commitment. I mean, and they have the courage. And so it's pretty dramatic. So that kind of in a nutshell is our program.
That's fantastic. From us still current officials, Mike, we don't think you went to the dark side. We still love you, man. you support us when you can. So hey, so I think you answered it there, but real quick, just as a follow-up, and then we'll let Dan jump in here. But it does sound like you all will fund, it's the first 3 years. It's not just football, it's any sport that the official wants to officiate. Is that correct?
Correct. Any sport. I have yet to place a mixed martial arts referee, and I don't really want to because I don't think I would know where to go. But
Right.
But yeah, we cover every sport, and that's cool. I mean, football is our number one.
Yeah.
Basketball and baseball become number 2 and 3. They're about the same. We do have some hockey. Basically East Coast people in hockey, but yeah, it's very cool. It means a lot to me. It's my passion now. It's my passion. I'm tired of trying to explain to people what is a catch and what's not a catch. I would like to do a little bit more with my life, and you will appreciate, and so will your brother Mike. I mean, on my Wikipedia page for a long time, what was I known for? I was known as the guy that got the officials, football officials, out of white knickers and into black pants.
Yes, you did.
And if that's all I'm known for, then I've not led a very productive life. And so this gives me a chance to at least make someone's life better because of what we are doing.
That's incredible. I can hear the passion in your voice. And I actually know Gene very well. And so I'll have to contact him. Yeah, I'll have to contact him and see what we can do, you know, not just financially, but also getting others to apply and things of that nature. So Mike, as we will you, Dan, but Mike, we will, Castlepoint will be making a donation in your name to a charity. It may be safe to assume I know which one you want us to donate to, but if not, I'll ask you and you can tell me offline.
Well, I will say that, yes, I would love the donation, but I also would say that in my garage, Dan, I have a beautiful Folds of Honor golf bag in my garage that somebody gave me, that each of our tournaments that we've had, I bring it out and display it at the very front where we enter. Everybody comes in to sign up. I have the Folds of Honor golf bag there.
I love it, Mike. And obviously a huge fan of yours, and I would have just tuned in to listen to that. That was fantastic. So there's this, I'm Catholic, but I'm a big student of Buddhism. So I'm kind of a weird guy, right? But when I was listening to your remarks, the term, and you guys may know this, but I love it. It's called Dharma. And there's no Christian translation of this. I don't know why religions can't deal with each other, right? Everybody's got to have their own thing going on. But it's when, and I apologize, somebody's trying to call me with fingers. It's when you can combine your passion, your aptitude, and make an impact. And that's when we're in Dharma, right? And that's what your story reminds me of, is when you find find that place where you combine all three of those, that you're in flow with why God put us here. And I think that's to make an impact. And then what a beautiful time to come together. And thanks for letting me share my my story. I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan, so we make a lot of catches right now.
Things are going good for you.
Yeah, and I was laying in bed watching them come back, and I think it was the the Chargers that they beat the other night. And I looked at my wife and I said, I can't believe we actually get to be a fan of a winner. We're both 50 years old. That never happens, right? What fun.
Well, I don't want to shed any bad news or not discourage any donations to you. But if I'm not mistaken, Jake's brother, Mike, threw Travis Kelce out of a game, threw him out of a game.
You got it right. He did.
He mouthed off, and I was so proud of Mike, who first called the flag. He threw the only flag he had, and then he was still so mad when Kelce said something that he threw his hat and threw him out of the game. It was a proud moment for me, actually.
Oh, but anyway, Patrick is, I think, a much more solid guy. But I've always said, you tell somebody a fact, they might remember it, but you tell them a story, and that's what lives in people's hearts and minds. And that's a great way to describe Folds. And so I won't take a lot of time, but I'd love to kind of share my story. Everything for me goes back to being a kid. I was 12 years old. I call them moments of synchronicity or chance with a purpose. On the golf course, I met my first fighter pilot, Steve Courtwright's call sign's Reno. He's like 6'2", looks like he walked out of the movie The Right Stuff. And I'm like, you can be grown up and this cool, I asked him. And he looked at me and he's like, yeah. And you want to drink of my Bud Light? And I reached my 12-year-old hand out and I hit that Bud Light and I handed it back to him. That was it, right? I'm like, I'm all in. This is ridiculous. And I told my dad a couple of days later, we're playing golf. I'm like, man, I know what I want to do with my life. I want to be a golf pro and a fighter pilot. And his response was pretty interesting to me. And he said, son, can you tell me which way an airplane takes off? And I'm like, well, I think it's into the wind. He said, that's exactly right. Obviously preparing me for these inevitable headwinds that would stand between me and this very unlikely dream of being a golf pro and a fighter pilot. For whatever it's worth, not much in my bank account, but I'm a rare bird, only guy in the world to combine those two things. But I had no idea how God would ultimately put them together to force multiply, to Mike's point, to give me this incredible gift of having an impact in life. And for me, I went to the University of Kansas, played golf there, joined the Air Force afterwards, and went off to training in the Air Force. And we go through a training to become fighter pilots. It's 2.5 years long. They spend $8 million per pilot training us, and of a class of an average of 45 people start in each class. It's less than 5% will make it through. And so obviously I made it through the big transformational lesson I learned in my life. When I made it to the F-16, which was like 18 months later, you get 4 rides with an instructor. Your 5th ride is solo. And I'm sitting in a $65 million fighter jet by myself. The thing goes 2.5 times the speed of sound. That's for all the Okies here. That's Oak City to Tulsa in about 60 seconds at top speed.
Wow.
And can blow up a city block and all the other stuff we can do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this college golfer, here I am. And so obviously I take off and I land safely. And as I'm shutting down the jet, I'll never forget this, man, hand on my shoulder, and it's go before you're ready. And it just permeated my body. It's like, if you go and have faith, I will always be with you. And really, that's become my anthem in life. And the greatest gift the United States Air Force has given me, 22 years later, still flying. So I'm one of the old dogs out there now, but I've never stopped that just go before you're ready mentality. And it's gotten to the point that I'm almost like, the crazier the idea now, the more certain I am that you just have to run headfirst into it. And, that leads me to the story of Folds, which after my 2nd combat tour of duty in Iraq, I've done 3 over there. I was back home and ended up on a commercial airliner going from Chicago O'Hare to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I know Mike spent a lot of time on commercial airplanes, right? When you got to get out and do your job in the world. And I remember walking through first class and I see this corporal in dress army greens. I didn't think much of it, press on back to coach. And about midnight, we touched down in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And the captain comes over the PA as we're pulling into the gate. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, we have an American hero on board tonight. We're carrying the remains of Corporal Brock Buckland, who was killed in Iraq, and his identical twin brother, Corporal Brad Buckland, is in first class and has brought him the 7,000 miles home. Captain makes another request that everybody stay in their seats until Brock's remains had been removed from the left cargo hold on the flight. And man, I'll tell you, I carry stuff with me every day. I've seen lots of death up close in person in combat, but I'd never seen this side of war. And I'll never forget watching that family, his brothers, parents, wife, but he had a 4-year-old son. And Brock's American flag draped coffin was inching down from the cargo ramp, and just watching that little boy. And I'm the father of 5, and the finality of that moment hit me like it never had over the battlefield of Iraq. And you realize that, this little kid's never going to get woken up by his dad or go throw the football in the backyard or grab an ice cream, all that stuff that matters so much, especially as we head into holiday season. And, the ceremony finished itself up, and I stood up that night, and despite the captain's request, more than half the people had left the airplane, right? It's like almost 1 o'clock in the morning at this point. They couldn't wait around. And they weren't going anywhere, right? Except that blanket of freedom we will all sleep under tonight, courtesy of Corporal Brock Buckland and the 1.1 million veterans who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. And, I walked off the airplane that night, and it was the first moment in my life I'd ever been disappointed to be an American. And, in that moment of despair, I felt a hand on my shoulder. And the only thing I'll tell you for sure in my short time with you all today is that it was a hand of God. And he picks the least among us, and man, do I qualify. That's that old saying, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. I was at a pretty rough spot in my life when he put his hand on my shoulder. And when I walked off that airplane, and in that spirit of go before you're ready, man, I called my wife and I was like, yeah, I know what we got to do. And I had nowhere to start, right? Didn't have any money, no influence, nothing, man. I was just a fighter pilot. We started Folds of Honor above our garage 15 years ago, and we wrote down the mission the very first day: honor the sacrifice, educate the legacy. And have been unwavering, giving scholarships to spouses and children who've had someone killed or disabled in combat. This fall, we opened up a new fund that's in that exact same spirit that will help first responder families as well, who have lost a loved one or had somebody critically disabled, coming to save us in our darkest moments. And Jake, when you dial 911, I ain't showing up in my F-16, right? Somebody's coming to help us. Yeah. And so we thought that was really important. And I'll leave you with this: is I think it's 87 times. I know 87 times in the Bible we're called to take care of widows and orphans. That's the greatest frequency of anything out there. And that's what we do, giving them the gift of an education. And, I have witnessed over 15 years, and we've got now just over 44,000 recipients. That's about $220 million out the door as an organization. And we do it the right way, man. We got a small team here in Owasso, Oklahoma. We are not in DC or New York or LA. And that allows us to do it super efficiently, which is really important to me. We got 91 cents of every dollar going directly to fund scholarship programming, which puts us in the top 1% of nonprofits in the country. And I've never made a 99% on any of my tests in my life, probably. So overachieving there. But when you guys make a donation to Folds, or consider sharing this with your family and friends, it's just really important to know that it's going the right place. It's getting to these spouses and kids that have given so much. And I think for all of us, the common bond is family, and making sure if something happened to us, that our family has the opportunity to get an education, chase that dream that we're all blessed to chase as Americans in this country. So thanks for letting me share my story. I just want to give a salute to Mike again for serving your country. And I will tell you, I get this a lot. People are like, man, I wish I would have put the uniform on, but I'll tell you, some of the greatest patriots I've ever met never put on a military uniform in their life. We're all serving this country. You guys making capitalism work, and the engine churn. We don't put any jet fuel in our airplane without democracy and capitalism. So we're all serving in different ways. But I hope people will consider checking out Folds of Honor and also sharing it with your family and your friends, because we don't advertise. It is just one American to another. And I'm looking at my flag in the background, and it's not red or blue. Like everything has to be in this country right now. It's red, white, and blue. So thank you for letting me share.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Can I just make a quick comment, if you don't
Please.
mind? I mean, that was unbelievable, Dan. And I'm going to appeal to you right now. I would like to invite you out to our golf event that we have next November, if you could be so inclined to come out to tell your story to our group. And I mean, they'd probably like a lot of help on golf too, but
I would be honored, Mike. And so if Jacob, you could connect Mike and I too,
Yes.
so
Yeah,
we have
that'd
our
be great.
contact, and I'd love for you. I'll reciprocate and get you an invite to a Folds event. It's all golf based too, but I'm a football junkie, and so I got my man crush going on Mike right now anyway. So it's all good. I can't wait to tell Jackie, my wife. She's a football junkie too. I'm like, I know that guy. I know that guy.
That's what it's all about. That's incredible. And just real quick, Colonel Dan, in your story, it was just incredible. And we want to thank you for your service to this country, so that we can lay under that blanket of freedom that you all provide us. And just really appreciate you sharing that. With a few minutes we have left, you've been around a lot of folks that may have gotten out of the military or have had to find their purpose. And I'm sure even in within Folds of Honor, you may deal with some of that. What have you found is helpful for those people that are trying to find or redefine their purpose?
I let in with it. When people ask me that, I'm like, hey, you got to identify your passion. You got to have an aptitude for it, and it's got to have impact. And I tell that to young people all the time. I tell it to my daughters. That is the magic elixir of life. That is what will fill your soul. And what was it? Jim Carrey, his famous saying, he said, I wish everybody could be rich and famous for a day. People's actions would be a lot different. And I'm sure Mike sees that with a lot of these football players, right? You got to have an impact. So I think that's the best I got on that front. I try to live it every day, and I'm blessed to do that. That's
phenomenal. Well, gentlemen, we did, Mike, so, we did share the Outside the Lines video, for Battlefields to Ballfields and Lieutenant Colonel Rooney. We also shared a Folds of Honor video with our clients. We will be sharing this link as well, as our clients, as well as with YouTube and on YouTube. We'll definitely connect you all, but as I told Mike, Dan, we're going to be making a donation to thank you for being here. We'll be making a donation to Folds of Honor from us in your name. I assume you want that to go to Folds of Honor, but if there's anywhere else, we'll say, okay, great. So we'll definitely be doing that. We also will make sure people know where to find you. We've got links to your websites on our email chain. And like I said, really the core reason we're here, although this spun off into something much bigger and better than I could have ever imagined, is like I told you, we give a list of charities to our clients every year, and then they actually go in and pick which ones they want us to donate to on their behalf for our year-end gifting. And so we'll be doing that as well. So that is everything I had. AJ, I want to open up for you and see if there were any questions from the group.
Yeah. So again, I want to echo what Jake said. I mean, both of you sharing your stories and that was just absolutely beautiful and absolutely amazing. And, as a civilian, I want to thank you, Dan. And as a person who is watching your journey, Mike, I want to thank you for everything that you are doing. Also, just want to appreciate appreciate the shout out Grand Rapids got. Born and raised there. I'm a little disappointed in those who got off the plane, but very appreciative of everything you do. And I had one question for the both of you. Mike, you can go first, and then Dan, if you'd like to follow. But that question is, through the years of both of you running these organizations and both of you having these interactions with our veterans and with these people who truly need the services that you guys are providing, what have you guys found to be the most gratifying moment for each of you?
Well, I think it's actually easy for me. When I knew I was on the right path is when a fellow named Jimmy DeBell, who lives in Rochester, New York, is a former NFL official, and I hired him, as a matter of fact, and we became good friends, and he decided that he wanted to represent us in the Rochester area. And so he did, and we had some applicants that came in, including one from a Jameson Pilgrim. And come to find out after the fact, Jameson was just a name to me. But when I went to Rochester to visit with the group that we had there, I was throwing out the first pitch at the Rochester Red Wings, I think it is AAA baseball team, because we were having a golf tournament there the next day to raise some money. And I stood 20 feet in front of the plate and still bounced the ball into in front of home plate. But as I was walking around, Jameson Pilgrim was walking next to me, and his fiance, Jameson was to my left, and his fiance was to my right, and she pulled my shirt. And I looked at her and she said, "You saved his life."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I saved his life?" She said, "You saved his life." She said, "I was afraid to go to work every day. I was afraid of what I was going to come home to. And one day I came home and he had a smile on his face. And he said, I think I may have found something." And he produced this brochure of Battlefields to Ballfields. And he said, "I'm going to try this." And so he joined the Football Association. He now officiates 3 sports, has a total different outlook in life. As I said, he feels like he's part of something again when he wasn't before. And when she said that I saved his life, that's when I knew I was on the right direction and headed in the right direction. That was the most impactful thing that's happened.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I would, as opposed to
Yeah.
share a story of a recipient, I think just for the group, I would say the most impactful thing for me on this journey has been that I've learned this incredible kind of divine irony in life, that when you reach out to help someone, you're actually the one being helped, and didn't understand that till God brought me on this path. And it is, I truly believe that will be our accountability when none of us get out of this thing alive, which we won't. What did you do with your time and talents to impact others? And I'm just so blessed personally, but also to have created a vessel at Folds of Honor for other people to have that opportunity. And obviously that's why I got to jump on the call today and share our story. So thank you again.
Absolutely.
That's
Beautiful,
incredible.
both of you guys. Absolutely. We had one final question that I think is a great question to wrap this up with. Again, for the both of you, what is a way outside of charitable donation that anyone can try and get involved in these 2 amazing organizations?
I mean, for me, it's just using us to reach out to veterans in whatever area that you're in. You know, there's obviously different Veterans Affairs offices and stuff, and to make our program known. I mean, much like Dan, I mean, I work out of my, if you want to call it an office, but upstairs in my house. And Melissa Washington, who runs the Women Veterans Alliance, she is like my, if you want to call it executive director, but she's not that, but she works with me. So we strive to keep our overhead down, but it is the exposure that we need to get. And I just kind of feel like that if anyone, I mean, everyone needs to think, everyone needs to spend time like I do on the road, just thinking and hearing what's going on in your head. And everybody needs to make a difference. And honestly, if you went out and put the word out about our organization or Folds of Honor, and you got somebody involved, you got a veteran involved, I mean, I think you'd feel a lot better about yourself, and then we would get more exposure. So I would just say, just carry our name and think about getting the word out about Battlefields to Ballfields.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna echo what Mike said. So I'm not very original, but that's it. It's like, and I always tell people, you can give a donation, that's great, but sharing folds of honor with your family and friends is the ultimate force multiplier. And so take 5 minutes to say thanks to the 1% of the country that woke up this morning willing to live out that scripture, John 15:13, no greater sacrifice than to lay down one's life for one's friends. And as I said, it's you're the one that's actually being helped when you're helping others.
That's fantastic. Mike and Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, both of you, just thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it so much. We will definitely connect the two of you, and just wish you a Merry Christmas coming up. And hope again, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. See you later. Goodbye,
Thanks.
everyone.
See you guys. God bless.